On how to make your sentences more interesting. Now, I have already mentioned all of these things in different classes before, so this really is a revision class. None of this is new, I must admit. So we're looking today at how to vary the structure. I keep saying that you ought to vary the structure of your writing if it's going to be interesting, so that it's not I did this, he did that, I did this, he did that. And we all do it. We all do it whenever we start writing. We make boring sentences. We're all guilty of it. And the reason that writers have such an interesting style, the reason that you enjoy reading their stuff, is because they don't do that. They make an effort not to do that. And I want you to make an effort not to do that as well. So how can we do this? Well, basically by becoming familiar with the grammar. Hi Lolly, hi Anna. The more familiar with the grammar you are, the more interesting the sentences become. So, for example, adjectivals and adverbials are what we're going to look at first of all. And if we vary how we use adjectives and adverbs, the sentences become much more powerful, much fresher, much newer. They're not old and overused and dead. They're new and they're interesting. So what can we do with adjectives and adverbials? Well, the first piece of advice is very simple. It's rather than using one adjective, you can use two. Yeah, and it increases the amount of detail that you have there in the description of the noun. So next to a brand new fence lay an old dirty bucket. So very simple sentence, but still I'm just pointing out that you can use two adjectives, and when you do that you've got four adjectives overall. Now, there's a couple of other things going on. Firstly, notice that I've got a comma between these two adjectives. That's because they're interchangeable adjectives. They're also both gradable adjectives. So according to Oxford style, it needs a comma, and according to Cambridge style, it needs a comma. But these two don't, because you couldn't swap them round. You couldn't say a new brand fence, so no comma according to Cambridge. And one's ungradable, one's gradable, so no comma according to Oxford as well. And notice that this sentence also has a fronted prepositional phrase. In everyday English, we'd say an old dirty bucket lay next to a brand new fence, but I've fronted the prepositional phrase just to make it interesting for another reason. So don't forget about fronted adverbials. They're very common and very useful in writing. And you don't have to just have one fronted adverbial. You could have two, you could have three. You could have three joined each time by the word and. You could have them without the word and just have a comma for each prepositional phrase. So there are many things you can do. There's literally an infinite number of variations in language, so use that large infinite number. What's the point in repeating the same old clause and phrase structure when there are an infinite number of options available? So use that infinity wisely. So the next example, you can have two adjectives, but equally you could have two adverbs. Why not? Yeah, something like so I'll give you an example in a second of the two adverbs, but you can have two adverbs as well, just as you can have two adjectives. Now look at the next one. Dirty and old, comma, tired and wrinkled, comma, the teacher droned on, comma, sweating profusely. So this has got two pairs of adjectives. We've got dirty and old and tired and wrinkled. And of course, you can say it like that and it changes the rhythm. Dirty and old and tired and wrinkled. You could add another and in there. But this pattern of two pairs, comma, two pairs is very common in literature. If you keep an eye out for it, you're bound to see it in the books around you. It's really very common, and it doesn't always go at the front. Here I've fronted the adjectivals, but they don't have to be there. They could be in the middle, they could be at the end. So two pairs of adjectives is a very common pattern. And why can't we have a pair of adverbs? Of course we can. We could say something like, slowly and cautiously, comma, the teacher droned on. And that would be fine. And why not four adverbs if you want two pairs of adverbs? That's also possible, although rarer, I must admit. Seldom do we see such sentences. So that's another option, two pairs and something very often seen. Another option is three participles fronted at the beginning, but they don't have to be there. But we could say something like confused, tired, frustrated. The teacher droned on. But we could swap the order round, and we can certainly lengthen the participle clauses. We could say something like the following: confused with the topic, or confused by the topic, tired due to lack of sleep, frustrated with the students, comma, main clause. Yeah, so please expand your participles into participle phrases. Why not? Expand your adjectives into adjectival phrases. Expand your adverbs into adverbial phrases. They can be one word or they can be a whole phrase. So do think about that. Experiment, basically. What I'd like you to do is experiment and try putting the participles at the front, try putting them in the middle, try putting them in various places in the middle, try putting them at the end, try splitting them up. There are many different options available, so do think about all the different ways that the sentence could actually be put, and you'll see that there is no limit to the number of ways the sentence can be written. It is endless. So yeah, do think about all the different things you can do. And then I gave you an example at the end of another thing I've mentioned before. It's called anadiplosis, and I mentioned it in the rhetorical devices lessons. So what is anadiplosis? Anadiplosis is when you have a word at the end of one clause and at the start of another. So it's repetition. And you could do this with adjectives. The pupil worked harder, harder than he had ever worked before. And then you've got that harder, harder, and the repetition sounds nice. You're emphasizing that word, that adjective, harder, harder, or sorry, adverb here. It's how he worked. So it's an adverb. He worked harder, harder than he had ever worked before. But the point is that the repetition really emphasizes the harder, harder, and it sounds like somebody's whipping him and shouting it out at him so that he works harder. Okay, and so it really emphasizes it, and it's another trick that all the writers use. You see it all over Shakespeare, this repetition of a word at the end and at the start of the next clause or phrase or sentence. So it's not just adjectives and adverbials we can play with, and that's what I want you to do. I want you to have fun with the language. I want you to enjoy using the language, because really there are many different things you can do, and it should be fun to express yourself. It shouldn't be boring, and it shouldn't be difficult to find new, fresh ways to express yourself. It should be easy. Just try lots of different things and see which sounds best to you. So noun phrases. Look at the following sentence. The Koh-i-Noor, I'm not sure how to say that, an oval-shaped diamond, the most expensive stone in the world, was mined in India. Now notice that here I've got three appositives. This is a diamond, this is a diamond, this is a diamond. They're all talking about the same diamond. Yeah, they're all talking about the same very expensive. I just found it on Google before the class, that this is the most expensive diamond in the world. And so I'm renaming it every time. And that's why I've got commas here, because of the appositives. The Koh-i-Noor, an oval-shaped diamond, the most expensive stone in the world, was mined in India. Okay? You can use and. Personally, I wouldn't here, not with appositives. I think we often do use and between the adjectives, but with appositives, I don't think we usually do. In fact, sometimes you really mustn't. You certainly mustn't say Theresa May, comma, and the Prime Minister, comma, is on the news a lot, because that would sound like it's a different thing. Like Theresa May is not the Prime Minister. So yeah, no, don't use and with appositives. Okay, so that's one thing we can do with with noun phrases. We can have lots of appositives, but we could also use anadiplosis with noun phrases. Why not? So we could say something like, because it was mined in India, comma, in India it rightly belongs. Yeah, I read that perhaps quite rightly the Indians would like this diamond back, because the English took this diamond for safekeeping a long time ago. So hi Marcia. That's an excellent example of an appositive. Very good. Yeah, 3 appositives. Very good. And happy birthday to you, by the way. So yeah, we've got in India repeated, and that sounds nice. I mean, it's a nice style. So think about how you can use anadiplosis. It's not just something for William Shakespeare, it's for you as well. And you could use it in your speaking as well as your writing. Why not? Okay, so lastly, I just got 3 nouns at the beginning, but they could be noun phrases. They don't have to just be nouns. Confusion, exhaustion, frustration. He was overwhelmed by all 3. Now, this is also a fronted object because all 3 are these 3. That's a pronoun here, replacing confusion, frustration and exhaustion. And of course, we can put an and between them, or we don't have to. We can say confusion and exhaustion and frustration, polysyndetic coordination, that's called. Or we could say confusion, exhaustion, frustration. He was overwhelmed by all 3. And that would be asyndetic coordination, if you want the technical term. Okay, so we can play with noun phrases, and there's loads of other things you can do. Please don't think that this is all. This is just a little taster, just to get you interested that there are, and to make you realise that there are many ways you can alter your sentences. Okay, we're going to have to go down to the bottom now, and I'll try and make sure that you've got everything in there. So at the bottom we've got conjunctions. Now there's millions of things you can do with conjunctions as well, and of course there are many different types of conjunctions. So I mean, for example, a subordinating conjunction like though. Yeah, though is a subordinating conjunction. We could say though he was confused, though he was exhausted, though he was frustrated, comma, he managed to get through the lesson. Something like that. So you've got though he was, though he was, though he was repeated, 3 subordinate clauses at the start, and then the main clause. That's great as well. It sounds interesting. It's not the normal he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that. So if I had more time, if I had more money, if I had more enthusiasm, I'd do it. So we've got 3 if clauses, 3 subordinate clauses again, and then a main clause, and we've got a comma to mark the end of each subordinate clause as well. But we could change this. Remember that with if sentences, you can use inversion in second and third conditional. So we could say, had I more time, had I more money, had I more enthusiasm, I'd do it. And that's another interesting way of, if you're tired of using if all the time, do that. But you can do the same with any subordinating conjunctions. So when, while, because, as, since, all of these will work with these repeated subordinate clause patterns. So have a try with it, play with your clauses and see what else you can come up with. And please don't forget correlative conjunctions. These are used all the time by writers as well. And there's not an infinite number of correlative conjunctions. There are a lot, but there are only a finite number of them. However, we do use them in interesting ways because of the parallel structure. So there's phrases like just as X, so too Y, not only X, but also Y, not so much X as Y, what W is to X, Y is to Z. I particularly like that one. You do see it quite often. Both X and Y, and either X or Y. So please use those correlative conjunctions as well and practice getting both parts in parallel, because it always sounds more persuasive. It always sounds like better style. But play with it, see what other options are available, see if something else sounds more beautiful to your ears. Okay, I think we'll leave it there for today, but thanks for watching everybody. Please give me a like, subscribe and all of that. And I'll try to do some more on this particular topic on how to improve the style of your writing and your speaking. Okay, so thanks for watching everybody, and I hope to see you all soon.